Good morning. Not many of you here know this, but I spend my days ministering to a place full of men and women who deal drugs, are addicted to drugs, who murder, who drive drunk. And this is the point for which I do risk-taking ministry. Risk-taking ministry is defined as willing to take risky actions in the hope of a desired result. Every day I get to face true brokenness, and I love it. I get to minister with people the world view as dangerous and show them the unconditional love of God. At the Metro Detention Center, I am known as the Happy Chaplain. Every time they see me, I have a smile on my face and a word of encouragement on my lips. I know the people that I serve would rather see a sermon than hear a sermon on the love of God. This week I had the opportunity to offer this to a young man who lost a family member. And he lost his family member of natural causes. And the reason I stress the word natural causes is because the people who I work with view murder as being normal. And when someone dies of a natural cause, it's something that is hard to understand, why God would take someone who is doing good in the world. So I got a chance to go and talk with him. After I received the call, I gathered a Bible, I gathered some pamphlets on grief and acceptance, and I gathered the good old Methodist upper room. And I walked and I hit the walk. When I arrived at the unit, the officer placed me into a room where I could talk to the young man in private. And once we were in the room, I felt the need to let the young man do the talking. And from there, I learned how to use the gift of listening and discernment, which I carry on my cross. To do this risk-taking ministry, after the young man talked for about 15 minutes, I asked him the question, is this what you want to do for the next 10 years? And the young man just stared at me because he said, why did you ask the question of the next 10 years, and how did you know that that's what I was offered in court? And I had to explain to him that I didn't know that, but God did. And God has a path for you and a plan. And right here is your time to decide if this is what you want to do. So we spent about an hour and a half talking more, and I got to learn about his childhood, which at the age of 12, he was just put out there. So he really didn't have a childhood. So I learned about that. I learned about the choices that he made, but I also learned where his break in life was. And after we got to that, we were able to take the pamphlet that I took on grief and acceptance, and we rewrote his story on that pamphlet. And so I told him, I said, see how God is using this time of grief for you to rewrite your story. So we kind of got to talk about that, and he got to look at some things, and that was really good. So I've really lost my whole sermon, but that's okay. So in this ministry, I took the risk of going outside of my comfort zone to do ministry to people that a sane person wouldn't want to do. And I enjoy it because I know that it helps them enrich their relationship with God. It helps them to understand that the love of God reaches all people. And so with the way that God has made me, I don't have a problem of hugging anyone, of talking to anyone, of letting them know that it is the God in me that loves the God in you. And let's just put that together and see what it is that God has for us. Because we're there. I'm in a place that is dark. I'm in a place that is confined. But God has opened a wide area for me to be able to do his ministry. And I love it. I get to see the brokenness in the world and have the opportunity to help make them know that they are whole. And that's all that we're asking you to do here in this risk-taking mission, is to see what it is that God, I'm done with this, but just to see what it is that God has put on your cross and to use it to help the world. because we are the answer to what the kingdom is looking for. And until we realize that, we will always be setting and not doing risky actions to get a desired result. And my desired result every day that I go to work is just to let them know God loves you and I love you too. And it gives them the hope to know that what they've gone through is not the end for them, that is only the beginning. And it is a place to start. But we need other people to come and join in with us who have that love of God and are not ashamed to express it. So I ask you to do that. So I was going to tell you about how I got here, so let's do that real quick. So I was working at a bank, and Jerry Nail came in, and he asked me to help him to do a transaction for a man who was in Riverbend prison. And he told me about how they go out every week and they do a service. And when he left, I said, I should have asked him what church he does this at, but I didn't. And when I came to church here and I seen him walking down the hallway, I was reminded of that. But the other thing that I was reminded of was how my heart felt when he was talking about the men that he was helping out at Riverbend. And I was like, I don't know what this is all about, but let's just see. And then the second time came when Stacy invited me to attend a prison ministry meeting. And I got to sit there, and I said, yes, I'm going to be a pen pal. And that was a disaster. So I didn't do that. But I didn't give up. I kept going out to the prison on the Sunday services, and I kept just getting to know the men, and I kept seeing what it was that God had in me and how was it going to be used. And it is just refreshing just to see that God loves us all. And there is not one person that he has created that he does not provide for them. And so that's good. So then the third thing came is when I was in my interview to be a deacon, and Paul said to me, the compassion that is in you, men need that. And it made me dig in deeper at Riverbend Prison, but it also made me to look at what it was that God gave me and where did it come from. And how do I use this? And even though I'm quirky and people don't understand me, when I'm there with the people who God has called me to be with, we have a good time and we grow in God and we grow in grace. And so there. So I use everything that is on my cross. And I enjoy serving the 900 plus people that God has given me to show his love to. And they show up every day, and they show up with looking for hope, they show up looking for acceptance, and they show up looking for the love of God. I know that I could not do this ministry without God, and I don't try. Just as I witness true brokenness of humanity every day, I use everything on my cross to be God's light in this risk-taking ministry. I challenge you all to take an inventory, to see what is on your cross, and see how the compassion, the heartbreak, the personal experiences, the joy, the forgiveness that you carry, and the love that you carry on your cross can help others. The men and women that I serve carry their own crosses. They carry the cross of rejection, of loneliness, some of abuse, some of feeling unloved. Yet they get up every day and they find the strength to seek God and to follow them. Follow Jesus, and I assure you that everything that you have survived will be used to transform lives. Disciples, Jesus said, pick up your cross and follow me. I did. See where it leads you.
Come here, Jerry. Yeah. This is Jerry Wellborn.
Hi, folks.
He's a chaplain out at Riverbend when Jerry and I first came out there. And if it wasn't for Chaplain Wellborn, we would have not succeeded in what we had tried to do out there. I want to start with Luke chapter 10, verse 1. The Lord sent disciples out 2 by 2. How do you become a disciple? How do you start a ministry? For me, it started with the Bible and a study of the Bible. It started with this book, Becoming Disciples Through Bible Study, a 34-week study of the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Jerry Nail and I participated in this study. And one day, 17 years ago, we were at the church office, and Bill Miller was our minister, and he came back from North Carolina with a video. And the video showed that the people in North Carolina who had studied this book were taking it into the prisons in North Carolina. So Jerry and I, we looked at each other and said, well, we can do the same thing, we think, here in Tennessee. So Jerry decided, why don't we try to get into Riverbend Maximum Security Prison and take this Bible study as our guide to start. That was 17 years ago. Was it risky? Oh, yes, it was for us, but it was a risk well taken. With the help of Chaplain Wellborn and Ricky Bell, we started our 34-week session with 15 men. Matter of fact, I believe 2 of them are here. Roy Anderson, could you stand up, Roy? He was in our class. Was Richie? Richie too? Richie Hall, would you stand up? He was in our class, our first class 17 years ago.
Carl Dodson may have been in that class. He was at Riverbend, I know that.
Carl Dodson, is he here?
I think he is.
I don't see him.
He just...
So for 34 weeks, for a number of years, Jerry and I would go out to the prison. And basically what that has done has led to other things that have gone out at the prison. A Christmas package program, a Christmas dinner. We have started a pen pal program. And also we have an 8 o'clock worship service with communion every Sunday morning with our rotating ministers. But I think the most important thing that Jerry and I did when we started, and it's continuing now, is to see these men out here. And Jerry Nail told me the other day there's been about 200 lives that we've touched of men who've come out back into society through our starting out at Riverbend. But one of the things I do want to talk about in addition to this is our church. I'm a charter member of this church, started this church, and when we started this church, the mantra of this church was, if you have a passion to do something outside the walls of this church, then this church would help you 100% in starting that ministry. And if it wasn't for that, Jerry and I wouldn't have been out to start our ministry at Riverbend. So if you think it's risky, and it is, but I would, each one of you, if you think you have a passion to do something, talk to the ministers and start a program. Thank you.